awakening. And the Screen magazine, in its second issue, tried to explain the reason. And he wanted to know that what he could do if they would improve. The world greater city become a monument to the courage and faith of the unsouthern Americans.
Hello, my name is Dean Contover. This is the History Show. Today we have a great show for you. I just want to let you know we have a veteran. He was in the United States Navy. His name is Robert Vines. He's from Chelmsford, Massachusetts originally, and he's going to tell us about his story on the Uss Ranger, which was the aircraft carrier. But before that, we get there, we're going to talk about his basic training and what he went through in regards to his training. I'd like to say, if you know of anybody that's a veteran, please call Chelmsford Telemedia or email me at chelmsfordvet150@yahoo.com, and we'll get you on the show and we'll talk about your experiences. I want veterans to contact me and let me know. But if you can't email me, call Chelmsford Telemedia in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, and we'll get you on the show and we'll talk about your experiences. This is going to be sent to the Library of Congress and archived because you're a Vietnam veteran and you've had these experiences. Robert Vines, V-I-N-E-S, he's going to talk about his experiences. And why did you join the Navy?
Well, I went to business school after graduating from Chelmsford High School in '64. I went to business school for a year, got a year diploma, and then once I dropped out of that program, I was eligible for the draft, and I got a notice, and they told me I had 30 days to decide what I wanted to do. So I checked out both the Air Force and the Navy. The Air Force had a 4-year program at the time, and the Navy had this special 3-year program.
Well, if you were drafted, you would have been only in the Army for 2 years.
I'm not into the camping experience.
Okay, go ahead.
So I went down and joined the Navy for 3 years. Took all the tests and went to Great Lakes, Illinois boot camp.
Okay.
And for 9 weeks it was condensed from 12 to 9 at the time because of the Vietnam.
When did you go there? What was the month?
October 1965.
Okay, cold?
I got cold in December when we were still there, very cold, yeah.
All right. So tell me what happens in basic training in 1965. It was condensed from 12 weeks to 9. Tell me what happened.
All right, everybody, before you get out of basic training, has to learn how to swim. I knew how to swim, but it's amazing how many people don't.
No kidding, yeah.
Yeah, probably about 15 out of each 100
no kidding.
People do not know how to swim. And they have to go back after the day's activities and retrain how to swim before they can get out.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and then everybody has to be trained on a Thompson submachine gun and a .45. And then there was fire training. Everybody has to be a fireman.
Oh, yeah, everybody, because if there's a fire on the ship and you're in the middle of the ocean, you just have yourselves. Is there, on ships, are there special firemen, fire teams?
There are designated fire people that have, firemen, technicians, and several other rates that solely deal with fires. But every sailor has to be checked out and learn how to put out fires.
Because you could fight a fire. I mean, were you ever on board a ship that had a fire?
We had a fire on the when I was on the aircraft carrier. We had a couple of small fires.
That was the Ranger?
The Ranger, yes.
What happens? What happens when there's a fire? What happens?
The
whistles blow.
The whistles blow. You go to general quarters.
Everybody goes.
Everybody goes, and you have.
What does general quarters mean? I'm sorry to.
It's a battle station.
Okay.
If you were at war or incoming planes or fire drills or whatever, everyone goes to general quarters and they have a designated task. I was in the Combat Information Center on a sound-powered phone, but everybody has a different task, and you have approximately 60 or 70 seconds to get to your station, whether you're asleep or not, because then they start closing the doors, watertight doors, and if you get caught in between the doors and don't make it to your station, you're in a little bit of trouble.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you make it to the station, and the fire people on board the ship go directly to where the action is.
Correct.
And everybody's sort of backup. If it expands, you have to fight it.
Correct.
And you protect the ammo and the planes and
exactly.
all that stuff.
Yep.
Now, do you know if you had nuclear bombs on board the ship, or?
I don't believe we did. No,
Oh,
not
okay.
nuclear.
Okay, I just wanted to ask
Yeah,
you that question. Okay, so basic training, a lot of marching.
A lot of marching, physical training, a lot of classroom work.
Like what? What was?
Well, learning about the the lore of the Navy, the
that's right.
who's the officer command, chain of command,
Chain of
the layouts of the ships, the just the terminology.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's in the military, it's terminology. I
Right,
mean, you have to
right.
know the terminology, the ranks, and
Yeah.
who's a captain, who's
Exactly,
a lieutenant
yeah.
commander, and things like that. So a lot of marching.
Yep, daily morning and evening marching, 4 miles, maybe 4 or 5 miles at
Oh, wow.
times. Yep.
Okay. So tell me, in basic training, you get up in the morning. What happens?
You get up and you have approximately 10 minutes to brush your teeth, get ready,
What about shave?
shave. Also, of course, if you have a fair skin and you're 18 and 19, you don't really shave too
Yeah,
often.
yeah.
But there are people with deeper beards that have to fit that in also.
Okay. In 10 minutes.
Yeah, and then
Wow.
you go to the chow hall. You march over to the chow hall and eat.
What time is this about?
About 5:30 in the morning.
Okay.
And
How
then,
was the food at 5:30 in the morning?
well, some days were better than others.
Okay. That's honest. So you go to the chow hall. What happens after you finish chow? You go back to the barracks?
You go back to the barracks, and they have a plan of the day for you each day. And
Okay.
it may be, it was usually a march in the morning, and you have to do these different parade exercises where you in formation. And then there was a lot of classes after that, the firemen's classes or the swimming.
First aid?
First aid, correct, yep. Like I said, we had some weapons training. And it was a pretty full day. And then at night you'd get maybe half an hour to write letters home or answer
So they
letters.
feed you in the evening, right?
Right,
Okay.
right,
So you'd march to the mess hall again
right.
in the evening?
Every place you go, you march.
All right.
Or you run if there's less than 3 people, you run.
If there's less than 3
Yeah,
people.
there's 3 people or less, you have to run.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Who are your commanders in basic training? Is there?
They were petty officers for the most part. They're
Okay.
career petty officers that put in for the drill instructor jobs.
Did you work with? Did you march with rifles at all?
Yes.
Oh, you did?
They weren't real rifles. They
Oh,
were
no.
wooden ones
You're kidding
and
me.
simulated rifles. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you get out of basic training. Do you go home on leave?
After basic training, you get 30 days leave,
Okay.
and then you report to your next duty station.
Which is usually a school, isn't it?
It's either a school or a ship.
Okay. And you were.
I went to a ship because when I went to basic training, after about 8 weeks, they bring you in for a career day. And if you get good marks on your tests and everything, which I did, because a person that's from this part of the country with a decent education, high school, is going to do well in the tests because you're really competing against everybody else that's taking the test, not
Right.
just the book.
Right.
So they'll bring you in and say, you got great marks, Bob. We'd like you to be in the nuclear Navy, and you'd like to be on a submarine, and duty stations are better and that. And you say, yeah, and they say, well, you'll have to extend your tour for 3 more years to a total of 6. And after you've been there for 8 or 9 weeks, you don't want to do another day. So I refused, and they said, well, that's not for everybody. Maybe you'd like to extend for a year or 2 more and go to a Class A school, anyone you want to go to. And again, I didn't want to.
What's a Class A school?
A Class A school is something you go to be an electronics technician.
Oh, okay. Something
yeah.
high-end
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
right. You'd go for a
Technical.
year to 18 months, and then.
Oh, wow.
So they wanted you to extend to do 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
total.
because they didn't want to spend money and
Right.
time
And
on
then have you leave.
and then have you
Right.
leave the military.
Right.
All right.
So again, I didn't want to do that. So the chief said to me, well, you're going to be, and he went down the list. He goes, you're going to be a torpedo man. Good luck. So I said, all right. So I went to the ship in San Diego. I was at it was a seaplane tender, the USS Currituck AV-7.
Wow. Airplane tenders. I mean, you don't hear that much about
No,
airplane
it was
tenders.
actually the last seaplane tender in the Navy.
Okay.
And it was stationed in San Diego, home port. And I went on board, And I reported to the torpedo shack, and the petty officer said to me, "We don't need any torpedo men. We have more than enough." So I'm going to have.
How do you become a torpedo man on the air, sea tenders?
Right. What would you call a striker? You're a torpedoman striker. In other words, you have to learn while you're on duty. You don't go to a school, so you learn.
No, I understand that. Yeah, no, I understand that. So, but where do they put the torpedoes on the plane?
No, they're on the boat.
Oh, they were on the
They're
boat.
on the seaplane tender has torpedoes.
Oh, has torpedoes
Yep.
that could fire off the
Right.
boat.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So that's interesting. Sea tender. I was just reading something about the Pacific during World War II, and there were a lot of sea tender ships, right?
Right.
How big a ship is a sea tender ship?
550 feet long,
And how many men on board?
1,200.
1,200.
Yeah. When they have what they call the squadrons, and everybody that's attached to
Oh,
them
I see.
that
Okay.
deals with the seaplanes
Okay.
themselves.
So explain to the people what a seaplane tender does. I mean, the seaplanes land in the bay or wherever you're located.
Right.
And
They have this
come
giant
over.
hook.
Okay.
They float up to the ship, and they have a giant a crane type hook,
Right.
and they attach it to the plane, and they wind it right onto the deck.
They lift it up.
One at a time. They can do
Okay.
one at a time, and they fix it right on the ship.
Oh,
Whatever's
okay.
whan with it.
Okay, if there's a problem with
Right,
the
right.
seaplane.
Right.
All right. How many people on the seaplane?
It's usually a crew of 3 or 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were only there for maintenance, basically.
Right.
You didn't supply them or anything like that, gas
just-
them up or anything like that.
They'd make meals for them, and they would gas them up at times. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they're like you're like an island,
Right.
and they come to you
Right.
for gas and
Right.
fuel and to eat and everything, and then they take off again.
This took place at Camron Bay in Vietnam, which is part of the Mobile Riverine Force.
Right.
They term it the Brown Water Navy.
That's correct. I know.
Yeah, and what they do is these seaplanes they patrol the Mekong Delta, and it was right before they went from seaplanes to swift boats. The next year,
Oh.
year we were there were swift boats. We
Oh, no.
supplied
Oh,
swift boats
okay.
instead.
They were highly decorated, those guys.
Yes, they should have been. It was
Yeah,
a very
I mean,
tough job.
they really did. So were you in Camron Bay with the sea?
Right,
Oh,
yes.
okay. So you get on board in San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and they give orders to go to Vietnam.
Right.
So you try. How many days did it take you across the Pacific?
Approximately, I think it was 13 to 14 days.
Okay, stop in Hawaii, of course.
Stopped in Wake Island, Hawaii, and Okinawa on that ship.
Okay, so you're going from San Diego to Hawaii to Wake Island to Okinawa,
Right.
and then you go into Camron Bay.
Right.
All right. So Camron Bay is a big base. I mean, there's a lot of
Right.
things going on there. What year was this now?
This was we did 2 tours on that ship, 65, 66.
65, 66.
Right.
Okay. So how long were you on the tender for in Vietnam?
Between 15 and 20 days a month.
Oh, okay. So you went into Camron Bay,
Right.
and then you withdrew.
Right, and another seaplane tender would come in and take
I
us.
see. I
Yeah.
see. They no longer have seaplane tenders.
No, we were on the last one in the Navy, and now they went from the seaplanes to the swift boats.
What was the name of the seaplane tender?
The one I was on, USS Currituck.
Currituck.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know the name. It doesn't sound familiar, and I don't follow seaplane
Yeah.
tenders. There's so many things in the Navy in regards to ships. But that's interesting. So you were on the last. That's heroic and that's historic, because you don't. The Navy doesn't have seaplane tenders
Right.
at all.
Right.
What happened to the ship? Do you know what happened?
It
to
got
the ship?
decommissioned in Vallejo, California, and was sold for scrap a few years later.
Oh, okay. So, how many people on board when you were in Camron Bay in Vietnam?
The total complement was 1,200 when.
Oh, is that
yeah.
right? Any other ships in?
There were destroyers right in the bay itself.
yeah.
Destroyers, the frigates, supply type ships.
Did you ever get fired on?
We got depth charged harbor mines.
No kidding.
One time we got hit by a harbor mine.
No kidding.
And after that, it just blew a small hole in the hull.
What happens after that?
Then they had deep sea divers 24 hours a day circling the ship. And the next year, I believe, they started using dolphins and sea lions.
Yeah, Camron Bay was known for training dolphins in regards to underwater mining, or not mining, underwater protection of the harbor.
Right.
And they used dolphins, and it was sort of semi-secret, wasn't it, at that time?
Yeah, it was.
I heard about it. I don't remember whether I heard about it in Vietnam or when I.
Most stuff you learn about in Vietnam, you learn years after.
Yeah. That's. I can't remember what it was, but I was at Camron Bay for 3 or 4 days. So these dolphins, what they would do, they would nudge an underwater demolition guy if they had to. And knock him off his path if he was gonna lay him up. But you had Americans, divers, all the time, every night.
Well, after that incident, it was 24 hours a day.
No kidding.
Yeah, 2 of them.
No kidding.
2 at a time.
Wow. Boy, imagine that, having an 8-hour day job.
Tough job.
Now, tell me about. So, you were in San Diego. How long were you in San Diego before you went to Vietnam?
3 months. We did some training exercises and get the ship readiness.
Off the coast of California.
Right. Yes.
Okay. Did you run into any storms when you were going across the Pacific?
Oh yeah. Once you get towards if you get towards the China Sea, North China Sea, it gets a little bit choppier and.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, and a little colder water.
Oh, okay. Did you go by yourself, or were you in the convoy?
No, there was always a convoy. There was a. There'd be a carrier at times. There'd be some destroyers, cruisers, just maybe 7 ships.
Oh, going over.
Right.
Did they all go to Camron Bay, or did they peel off to go?
No,
to
some were too
Philippines?
big. If a bigger ship can't go into Camron Bay, they're on Yankee
okay.
Station.
Okay.
The bigger ships.
So the big ships went on Yankee Station.
Right.
Yankee Station was called the Yankee Station during the Vietnam War, what meant that you were off the coast of North Vietnam, right?
Gulf of Tonkin.
In the Gulf of Tonkin, and going up and down, up and down. If you were an aircraft carrier, you went up north, and then you went down south, and it was, or you went to east and you went west, and all that. Let me ask you a question. When you go across the Pacific, did you cross the equator?
No, we were scheduled to go to Australia once, and we actually was because of the Pueblo Incident that we didn't get to go to Australia when it was on. This is on an aircraft carrier later, and a couple of years later. So we didn't. No, we never crossed the equator.
Tell people what happens if you cross the equator.
They have what they call a polywog ceremony, shellback, and what they do is they shave everybody's head that hasn't been across the equator, and paddle them. Anybody that's been across gets to paddle, no matter what your rate or rank is. You can, if you're a petty officer, you could paddle a lieutenant that hasn't been across the equator.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, you have to go through this little ceremony. Then everybody becomes goes from a polywog to a shellback.
Oh, okay. So it's a big deal. What about the international date line? Is there anything on that when you cross the international date
I'm not
line?
sure about that.
Oh, okay. But it's definitely the equator.
Right, the equator.
Let me ask you this question. When somebody screws up in the Navy, what happens to them?
You go to captain's mast,
which
is basically a court.
Okay.
It can range from anything from being falling asleep on watch, or AWOL, absent without leave, coming back late from liberty, sassing a superior officer or even a petty officer.
You can't hit them, right? I mean,
you can't. No, you can't hit anybody. So once the infraction occurs, then you go to the captain's mast, and sometimes it's the captain himself, but other times it's somebody he appoints. They listen to your case, and then they administer the justice, where you could lose one of your stripes, or you could lose. You could be made to stay on board for 30 days. Or this was also a brig on the aircraft.
Oh, okay.
carrier.
Let's get back to the brig
Yeah.
in those days. You go in the brig. What happens in the brig?
At that time in the 60s, it was bread and water, which
Yeah.
seems a little inhumane, but that's what they did, was bread and water.
Yeah. For how many days? Is it 3 or 4?
3 usually, yeah.
There was, if you were in the Navy, they could put you in the brig and put you just on bread and water, and that's all that you get. There was an incident on the Ranger later on where a sailor died in the brig, and there was a big scandal about that. So I just want to tell you, don't join the Navy. Forget it. But I don't think they have that now, do they? Bread and water?
I don't believe. I think it's been deemed to be inhumane.
Yeah, I thought
think you
when I heard about it, I was shocked.
Yeah, right.
You know, that they could put you on bread and water.
That's from the old time. That's from the English Navy, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I think they give you vitamins and stuff now.
Oh, is that right? Oh boy, that helps.
Yeah.
You know. So you're on the tender. You make any friends on the tender?
Oh, sure. Many friends, yep. I'll tell you one story. One of the first days I was on board, they give you a plan of the day, and they tell you what uniform to wear and what the meals are going to be.
What do you mean uniform to wear?
Well, if you were on deck, you had to have a certain.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Does that mean the winter uniform?
Right, or the
summer uniform?
right,
Oh,
exactly, or the dungarees. Usually it was dungarees every day. if
Yeah,
you were
because you were
working.
working ship maintenance.
Right.
Yeah.
And then list the activities and any kind of drills that were going to be done that day. They'd also have at night, they'd have bingo, or they have boxing matches.
Movies?
I had a movie every
Always
night, and they'd
movies.
list the movie. And then on this particular one, I saw an entry at 0900, they were going to pipe off the ship for the last time, Chief Petty Officer, and they gave his name. And so I asked somebody what it was, and they said, well, this guy's going to be buried at sea.
In Vietnam or
On the way over.
On the way over.
Yeah, he didn't die. He had died. He was a Korea guy.
Oh, he's a Korean.
He died
20 years or more.
Died
right.
yeah, and then he requested to be buried
Oh,
at
wow,
sea.
you could do that.
So they picked this ship because it was going over.
Okay.
So what it was, all they have is a bugler, does taps, and a chaplain, and they have a little chute over the rail of the ship.
Yeah.
And the casket, and there's a flag, and the flag doesn't go, but the casket goes right off the little chute into the water, and that's it. That's the burial.
So
at sea.
everybody has to be on board, and the whistles
You don't
blow
have to
and
go.
then-
No, I just went
Oh.
up because I was curious.
Oh,
But
yeah.
They'd have, they'd blow whistles and stuff.
Well,
like that.
I know we had guys from World War II who came on
Mm-hmm.
the show, and they told me about seeing sailors who were wounded on board ship.
Right,
They had a ceremony, a big ceremony,
sure.
and dropped them into the sea.
Right.
And I think he told me it was 3. Then one guy on the show told me that there was a pilot from a kamikaze pilot that landed on the ship, crash landed,
yep.
and its body was there, and they buried his name. I mean, they buried him at sea in honors. And you know what? The commanding officer, I have to give him credit, because you know why? When I talked to this sailor, and I told him, I went online, I found the lieutenant's name and pictures of that burial at sea. Historically, I mean, that commanding officer should be, given credit, because he didn't have the foresight of the internet that this would be on the website. I said, wow, this is interesting. And the sailor didn't even know the lieutenant's name. So I informed him. So that must have been interesting, huh?
It was.
Yeah. Anything else happen on the way over or in Camron Bay? Did you get mortared, or did you hear any noises like?
Well, we saw tracer fire
Tracer.
every night in the villages, just beyond the village of Camron Bay.
Okay. Can you hear them, or did you see them?
No, you can basically see it. Occasionally
Yeah.
you could hear it. Maybe
Okay.
if they had a little grenades or something, you could hear that.
Yeah. Camron Bay was a port that American ships can go into and feel protected.
Right.
If there was a typhoon or anything like that, it was a pretty good port. They had a airfield there, 11,000 feet of runway. just my military training. Most runways are 3,500 feet in Vietnam, and this was 11,000 feet, and it was and all concrete. So they had a lot of supply depots there. Did they have fuel depots there too?
I believe they did, yeah, and they had a hospital.
Oh, that's right.
And
They
an
did
Air
have a
Force
hospital
base,
there.
an
Yeah,
Air
big
Force base,
hospital,
yeah.
yeah. So in other words, if somebody was wounded, they had a hospital right on the ocean,
Right.
right with a beautiful beach. Am I right?
You're correct, yeah.
Yeah. And I forgot what the name of was it the Sixth? I'm trying to remember the unit that had that hospital. Then there was a replacement center, so everybody who flew in to Camron Bay got assigned to units all through Vietnam.
right.
And then if you were leaving, you wound up in Camron Bay because there was a replacement,
Right.
the 22nd replacement battalion or detachment was there, and that you flew out.
Okay.
Now, so if you got injured or something happened, you flew out, right?
Right.
So, so a day in the life of a tender. So, any planes fly into Camron Bay? Did you see any planes fly in? Seaplanes?
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
Sure,
okay.
Yeah, you'd see them flying down the rivers.
Yeah. Anybody shot down?
Not that I know of. No.
Oh, okay. Anything that you saw, fires or anything like that?
Later on the swift boats, there was a lot of those shot.
Okay,
up
so
there.
you saw swift boats.
Mhm.
They would come up to you and recharge there,
Right.
or any maintenance you
Right.
did?
Maintenance mostly.
Mostly. How long was that for, usually?
Well, that was the second tour we were there in '66 and '67. After they got rid of the seaplanes, they did basically all swift boats, and so
Okay.
we'd do the same supplies that we did
All
on
right.
the repairs.
Secretary of State Kerry was on a swift boat, but that was in 1969. So you didn't see
No,
him at all
no,
or anything
no.
like that. So I just want to say that. We just have a couple of minutes.
Okay.
So tell me what you did with a swift boat. We're going to talk about the Ranger on the next show.
Okay, great.
And you could, USS Ranger is a aircraft carrier, CV-61 for you veterans out there who are in the Navy, and it's a Forrestal class aircraft carrier, right? How many planes on board of that?
80 to 90,
And how many guys on board?
at 5,500 at times.
Oh,
With the
okay.
squadrons, again, with the squadrons come on board with the
Again, how long were you on the seaplane tender? What
2 years.
What years?
60. It was the end of '65, '66, and part of '67
Okay, and then you were on the Ranger from 67
to '68.
to 68. We'll get into depth
Okay.
on that. We'll talk a little about the tenders, because to me that's what they use in the Pacific Ocean. I
Right.
mean, though how old was that ship, the tender?
It was built in World War II, so
Yeah.
quite a few years. It would be at that time. It would have been 25, 30 years old.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it got decommissioned in '67, so it might have been 35 years old when it got decommissioned.
Oh, wow. So did it break down at all going
Well,
across?
it was
the
always
re-
problems.
Problems, yeah. It's a machine. I mean,
Right,
yeah, and
exactly.
you do have problems. You have to do the maintenance and everything. And that's probably why they got rid of it.
Right,
One,
it's more
and
efficient. The boats were more efficient.
and seaplanes. I don't think we have seaplanes anymore.
None, no.
You know, they would land in the ocean or the bay,
Right.
and that's it. And how many passengers could they carry?
I think occasionally they'd come in with mail and that, and they'd bring somebody that was coming on board, maybe one or two. So I think maybe 6 tops.
Okay, they couldn't land on a carrier though.
They probably could. They
Oh.
could probably, because they hovered.
It's a
quite
prop,
bit.
right?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
But it had a belly-like to land on the
Right. Yeah.
on the ocean.
Well, it landed next to the seaplane tender,
Tender,
then it
right.
would be hoisted aboard.
Yeah. But it had wheels, so it could land
Right.
at a regular airport too.
Yeah, exactly.
Did they extend the wheels?
I'm not sure about
Okay,
that.
Bob.
All right,
Thanks
you.
a lot for
Pleasure.
coming on the show. We're gonna have you.
questioning. And the Screen magazine, in its second issue, tried to explain to me
And he wanted to know that what he could do if they were the world's greater city, become a monument to the courage and faith of the unsouthern Americans. Buffalo hunter who with his raging old from these broken streets and
Thank you for watching today.
they moved the greater city to
United
be
States Navy. His name is Robert Vines. He's a resident of Chelmsford. Grew up in Chelmsford. Went into the Navy during the Vietnam War. Was stationed on a seaplane tender ship, 1,500 men. Then went to the Uss Ranger, which was an aircraft carrier. And in this show, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the seaplane. But I just want to say, if you have any brothers, sisters, fathers, uncles who want to be on this show, please call Chelmsford Telemedia or email me at chelmsfordvet150@yahoo.com, and we'll get you on the show. This is archived at the Library of Congress, so we want to hear your story, and your grandchildren want to hear the story. So please call us and contact us, and we'll get you on. I just want to say Robert Vines was in the United States Navy. He went to basic training at Great Lakes, Illinois. Is that North Chicago? Is that where?
Just north of Chicago.
Just north of Chicago. Everybody takes their basic training there in the Navy.
Everybody this side of the Mississippi.
Okay.
And if you're on the other side, you go to San Diego.
Oh, okay. It's like the Marine Corps.
Right,
They have South
right,
Carolina and San Diego. Okay. So you go to the Navy. You learn how to make your bed, how to wash your clothes.
Right.
Is there? I went from the and you learn how to fight fires. But I was told that there's a certain way you have to hang your clothes in the Navy. Can you tell me that story?
Well, you have to. There are several ways you have to hang your clothes. You have to have shoulder to shoulder on the shirts. I've really forgotten most of it now, but
yeah. Okay.
and everything has to be a certain way. The hats, the shirts, the pants, the boots have to be a certain way.
Right.
I forget the exact.
Do you have to tie knots on the
Oh, you have to learn how to tie knots.
knots?
Yes.
And tie knots when you're doing the hanging your clothes or something
You have to
like
yeah,
that?
a special knot to
There's
tie
a
your
special,
clothes,
yeah.
right.
That's what they told me.
Right.
It was hard for me. I could see underwear being hung up and tied,
Right.
tied knots, but that's another story. So you went through Navy boot camp. You made it out. Did you feel good after that? Did
Yes, very, very good.
you? You were in shape, right?
Definitely in shape.
Yeah, that's for sure. So then you either go to a school or you're assigned a ship in
Correct.
those days, and you were assigned a ship.
Right.
And the ship was,
The first ship was the USS Currituck. It was a seaplane tender.
okay.
And it's stationed in San Diego, California.
For people who didn't watch the last show, a seaplane tender is a plane that, not plane, but it brings in the seaplane and it performs maintenance on the seaplane.
Correct, right.
If the engine needs to be fixed or something like that, or painted or whatever. You guys did that as a fleet. We don't have them in the fleet today.
Right. This was the last seaplane tender in the Navy.
Oh, it was the last
Yep.
seaplane tender in the Navy. All right. And that was in stationed what, in San Diego?
San Diego, California.
Okay. So you went from Great Lakes to San Diego.
Correct.
But you went home first.
30 days leave.
30
between.
days leave. And the Vietnam War was going on at that
Right,
time, right?
right.
So you, well, you were pretty happy, huh? Being
Yeah.
home. You didn't want to go, did you?
Well,
Did you know that you were being assigned to a tender?
the last week of the training I did, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You got the orders for the
Right.
And you said, what the heck is
Right, I
this?
didn't know what it was. I was happy to go to California. I hadn't
Oh,
been there.
okay. Now, how did you go to California? I mean,
You fly.
okay.
The Navy pays for everything, of course. You fly.
Okay.
Actually, you fly commercial, and
Okay.
you just go to San Diego and report on board.
So you got on the plane in Boston,
right.
and you flew nonstop to San Diego? or-
Well, I think we stopped on L.A.,
okay.
Los Angeles.
And then you went to San Diego
Right.
from there. Okay. and then you got off the plane, and there was somebody waiting for you at the airport?
Nope, you have to find your way to the ship yourself.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep. And you report on board, and you report to the to what station you're supposed to be at. I was supposed to be a torpedo man at the time.
Yeah, tell me that story.
And
tell us that story.
well, I refused to go to the schools to extend my enlistment. I could have been in the nuclear Navy for an extension of 3 years.
That
or I
means a
could have gone-
submariner.
Right, or I could have gone to Class A schools and extended for a year. I chose not to, so they made me a torpedo man, sent me to California to that ship, and when I reported aboard, the petty officer there said, "We have too many torpedo men. You're going to either have to go to the mess decks or be a boatswain's mate," which, you know, is the guy that scrapes the ship all day. So on the way
and sweeps it down and,
right,
and
right,
swabs it down.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So on the way to report to the boatswains, I saw a bulletin board said they needed a dispersing clerk, had to be able to type 15 words a minute and use an adding machine because there were no computers at the time.
Right.
So I went and tried out for that and was successful, and they took me in there.
Okay. So they took you in there. Did you become a clerk or something? I
Became a dispersing clerk.
a clerk.
And then
What's a dispersing clerk?
It's the guy that handles the money. He does
Oh,
paydays.
wow.
He does
So you had? Did you have a weapon when you gave out the money?
45 on
Oh,
the
you had
mess
a
decks.
Was it loaded?
Yeah.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
loaded.
We had training on the 45s at boot camp, and when there was payday every 2 weeks on the mess decks, which
Okay.
is the eating areas,
So in the Navy, they get paid every 2 weeks,
Right.
not once a month.
and it
like
was
some-
in cash. There was no computers at the time,
Okay.
so everything was in cash. So everybody was lined up.
Okay.
So
So was there a grate in front of you, or was there?
no, just
Like we're sitting here,
Exactly.
and you had a 45 pistol.
Right.
So if somebody came by and tried to take the money,
Yeah.
you were supposed to shoot them.
they probably would have been successful. But they did have some master at arms also. That were ship master at arms, which is the police on board the ship, and also Marines too.
Okay.
So there was, I was.
Oh, you had more Marines on board.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So how did that go? You call the guy's name.
They come up alphabetically. There were different areas for A through L or whatever.
Okay.
They came up, and everybody just had a big placard. It was, again, no computers, so it was a cardboard placard. It would have the last date you got paid. So we'd be subtract that number from what you were owed, and then the new date, what you were supposed to get, less allotments. A lot of people had allotments for children.
Oh, the
or
children. That's right.
former
Yeah.
marriages or
Yeah.
court cases
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So then you'd figure, it would already be predetermined how much they got, and you just issue them the money.
Okay. So you were out there counting the money.
Right.
Did you ever shortchange it by?
Not that I know of.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure they'll let you know.
Yeah, I'm sure. So what rank were you at the time?
At that time, I was at an E3, a seaman, and then what happened was they have these tests for petty officers, there's an E4. And right before I was going to take the test for dispersing, the officer came up to me and said, "We really have too many people. I can't let you take this test, but I have." He was also in charge of the commissary. He said, "I can let you take that test." I said, "Well, I never, I don't know anything about it."
Commissary is food and
Cooks.
and
Right. So I took that test and I passed it to make petty officer in the first increment, which is really good. That's doing pretty well.
Yeah.
I made it within 30 days, and
Oh,
I had
wow.
never cracked an egg. So that gets interesting when I go to the next ship.
Okay,
because-
we'll talk
Yeah.
about that. So what gets me is, do these guys come in front of you like you're sitting down?
Right.
Do they sit down or they stand?
No, they stand there.
Do they say anything or salute you or anything like
No,
that?
no. There's the officer's there. The dispersing officer's there.
Oh, do they salute him when?
You don't have to when his hat's off and.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're paying him cash.
Right.
He takes it. Does he get a receipt?
No, there weren't even receipts. He signed his cardboard record.
Slip or record, yeah.
record,
There was no receipt at all?
No.
Because I know when I was in, I got a receipt saying that,
Really? No,
I
there were no receipts.
I got $19 or whatever
Really?
it was. I mean,
I
that
think your
was-
receipt was your signature.
Oh, wow. So what was the base pay then? What did you get paid?
When I first got to that ship, I believe I got $82 a month.
Wow.
That was the pay, but of course you don't have to pay for food.
Every 2 weeks, right?
Right.
All right. So you go from San Diego to Camron Bay. Camron Bay is a military base, big base, Army, Air Force, and you're sitting there, and you're just still dispensing the money out. That was your job. Oh, okay, that was cool. That's all you did, twice a week, twice a month?
Well, I mean, you'd also have to correspond with the personnel people, and it was a little system. But basically, it was mostly just record keeping.
All right. Anybody get any medals in your unit? Did you get the Vietnam Campaign Medal? Everybody got that,
yeah,
right?
Vietnam Campaign Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, and the aircraft carrier I was on later got the Meritorious Unit Commendation.
Unit Commendation, yeah, okay. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
So the tender didn't get that, huh?
No.
That you were aware of, okay.
No.
And you were on there from what years and what year?
The end of '65 to it got decommissioned in August of '67.
Okay, so you would go in, take care of the seaplanes, which are far and few between, right?
Right.
And then pull out of the harbor and go to Philippines, or?
We go to Philippines, Hong Kong.
So you must have a great time.
Yeah,
man.
Japan.
What a deal.
That's a pretty good deal, yeah.
Yeah.
15 or 20 days in Vietnam a month.
Yeah.
And then we'd go to like 6 different ports.
You get combat pay?
You get combat pay if you're in, yes. You get your regular pay, everybody would get combat pay when you're in Vietnam, and then the people that worked on the flight decks got hazardous duty pay on top of that. So
Okay,
they
that
get
was $50
another
extra,
65.
65, wow.
Yeah.
65 extra. That was a dangerous job, especially on the aircraft carrier. So you're on this. Made any friends?
Oh yes,
You still keep in contact
I
with
do.
them?
Yeah, with the computers now, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah, I know, that's true. So the seafood tent. What was the name, like the USS Ranger's CV-61?
It was CVA 61, which means attack carrier.
Okay, but what was the tender? How was that?
AV-7.
AV-7.
Yeah.
Okay. So there were basically 7 before that.
Right.
Okay. All right. So yeah, there's a nomenclature with every ship in the Navy. DD means destroyer. AO means oiler.
Right.
They take up the aircraft carriers. So you're just sitting in the harbor. How were you supplied?
There were supply ships in the area. They'd come in.
And they would supply you
Right.
guys.
And there was also a supply depot in Camron Bay.
Oh, so you
Yeah.
had the best food. You
Right,
had,
right.
So you're the guys that got all the good food, and we got all the
You got the
leftovers.
rations.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So okay. Now they decommissioned. Were you on board when they
yes,
decommissioned?
they decommissioned in Vallejo, California,
Okay.
in 1967
What
August.
do they do when they decommission the ship?
Basically they take everything off they can, all the file cabinets, the guns, anything they can take off. They take it off and they sell it for scrap.
Okay.
And they tie everything else down, and basically they send it to a shipyard.
Okay. And all the records are archived in Washington, wherever
Right.
they keep the archives and everything. Okay. So after it's decommissioned, do they have a ceremony on board?
They do.
And
Yep,
lower
they
the
have a
flag and.
Yep, decommissioning ceremony. They
Oh.
lower the flag. They present it to the captain of the ship, and newspapers are on board.
Okay. The captain of the ship and the rank captain are 2 different things. Can you explain that?
Well, a captain of the ship, it could be an ensign. It could actually be it could even be a petty officer or a warrant officer. Generally, on smaller ships, they're not a full captain,
Chief
which
petty
is a
officer,
colonel.
yeah.
A captain in the Navy is a colonel in the
Right.
Army, so it's a high rank.
Yeah.
So on the bigger ships, you will have actual captains, but
Right.
on the smaller ships, it could be lieutenant, ensigns,
Lieutenant commander,
lieutenant commanders,
or something like
anything.
that. So just because he's a captain of the ship doesn't mean that he has the rank of captain.
Correct.
Okay. So what happens after this? Now the ship is decommissioned,
Then
and you're pretty happy, right?
Right.
You're back in the States.
Right, we got 30 days leave,
All right.
and then I had to, after the 30 days leave, I flew to Travis Air Force Base, and I got on a military transport plane that was like 18 hours. We went to Hawaii, stopped in Hawaii. We stopped, and then we went to the Philippines. And I had to wait for the aircraft carrier to come to the Philippines.
Okay, so you were assigned, you had orders to go to the Philippines.
Right.
And what was the name of the aircraft carrier?
USS Ranger.
Okay. Okay, so you get on board, were there other new guys going on board
Oh,
with
yeah.
you?
Yep, there was always someone coming and going.
Yeah, okay. So you get on board with your bag,
Sea bag.
right?
Yep.
And what do you do when you go on board? What's the procedure going on board?
Well, when you get on board, you salute the ensign, the flag, and then you ask for permission to come aboard and salute the officer of the deck.
Of the officer's deck. And that could be a lieutenant or
Yep.
ensign or anything,
Or
but it
a
had to be an
chief, too,
officer.
yeah.
Well, so in other words, you get on board, you salute the flag,
Right.
And then you salute the officer on deck.
Correct. And you ask
Okay.
for permission to come aboard.
And you ask permission. What if he doesn't give you permission?
Never happened to me. But
Oh, okay.
I think it's one of those things like the airport. They ask you if anybody ever asked you to pack anything in your bag.
Oh yeah,
No one
that's
ever answered
probably
yes.
So you go on board, you get assigned, you get in the bunk,
Right.
and they show you around. Now, how many personnel on board that aircraft carrier?
5,500 on the aircraft carrier.
5,500.
Yeah,
So it's a
with-
floating city,
Right.
technically.
Right.
You have hospitals, you have restaurants, you have.
Yep.
I don't want to say restaurants.
Well, they have three
Yeah.
mess areas. They have the wardroom for the officers, they have the regular mess area, and then they have the chief petty officer's mess area. And they also have, if you don't like the food that's being served, they have, when you're out at sea, there's another smaller area which serves hot dogs, french fries, hamburgers 24 hours a day.
Oh wow.
If you don't like the regular.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So they kept you fed. Any woman on board?
None at that time, no.
Okay, none at that. I just want to check. Let's talk about black-white issue on board. Were there any problems with black-white issues?
There were always a little bit of surface problems. I mean, I got along with most people.
Yeah.
But we did, at the time in '67, both Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King were assassinated.
Okay.
And that brought him some hostilities, some
Towards
signs.
what, the offices or?
No,
towards-
just basically anybody that was a different color. The blacks didn't care for the whites at that time.
Okay.
And they'd have some signs, and they'd eat by themselves in the mess areas, kind of stay to themselves.
Right.
It lasted a few weeks.
Any African American officers?
Yes.
Oh, there were officers. Okay, just pilots or
Both.
Both.
Yep.
Oh, okay, good. I just want to ask. In those days, it was just opening up and everything.
Right.
So you get on board, you get assigned. What was your duty?
What was my duty?
Yeah, what was your duty?
I was the, since I got to that ship,
Yeah.
when I went to report aboard that ship, the chief petty officer, the commissary, since I was an E4, a petty officer cook, which I never cooked, he was a little appalled at the time. He says, "I don't think I have all your records." He says, "Are you a butcher or a baker or a regular cook or what?" And I said, "I never cracked an egg," and I gave him the story about making petty officer.
Right.
So he was
Oh,
a pretty
boy.
good guy. He says, "Well, I'm going to have to put you in the chief petty officer's mess. You're going to be in charge for certain times." So when I got there were two guys that couldn't make petty officer, but they could cook. They could make soufflés and cakes, and so I ended up doing their job. I'd open the cans for them. I told them, "We'll get you whatever you want. Tell me what you want for supplies. I'll get it. I'll make the menus. I'll open the cans and
Oh,
stuff."
you made the menus?
Yeah.
You're the guy that made the
I'm the
menus
guy
for,
that
for
made the
me for
menus.
Thanksgiving or something?
Yeah, and then you have to figure out how much each meal cost. But anyway, those guys took over, and everybody was, the chiefs were all excited because the food was so good.
In the Navy, in those days, I don't know about now, you had to take tests for
Yep.
every promotion, every rank. And in the other services, you didn't have to do that. Were there any Marines on board your ship?
We had Marines that were in
Alright.
charge of the brigs.
Okay, when you were off the coast of North Vietnam, up and down flying pilots, was this a 24-hour operation?
24 hours a day, yep. It was called Rolling Thunder.
Okay.
And actually the first planes ever to bomb North Vietnam were off the USS Ranger.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it was 24 hours a day.
So can you hear the planes landing
You can hear them thumping.
and taking off, even no
Absolutely.
matter where you are on the ship?
Absolutely.
And it was daytime and nighttime
Right.
operations.
Yep.
All right. Did you ever go on top deck?
Yep.
Okay, so you saw the operations.
Yep.
Those guys got paid more, $65 more.
$65.
Not that much in comparison
No,
to 65 today. But you can get really injured. I mean, catapult, getting shot off.
Right.
That crew there was injuries on that.
If someone got in, a couple, I believe one guy did get in the wrong spot and he was sucked into a jet engine, and passed away. But and there were others who were blown off the ship.
What happens in that situation?
Well, the ship, they send out a helicopter, and they put buoys out, and
Yeah.
they always have on their vests. So
Man overboard, right?
man overboard drills.
That goes through the whole ship.
Right,
And everybody says, I'm glad it wasn't me.
right, and everybody has a man overboard station, so you report to your station.
Oh, okay.
And do whatever job you're supposed to do.
Do they drop a boat into the...
They drop a boat, and there's a helicopter, and the ship actually makes a big turn, and it takes quite a while.
Yeah, boy, it must take about a half a mile or a
Right,
mile to
right.
make that turn. Just want to tell you, a ship never goes on a boat, but a boat goes on a ship. I just want to let you know that. That's the terminology in regards to boats and ships.
Right.
So, so you're off Yankee Station, off and on. So what happens to you when you're relieved? There must have been 3 or 4 aircraft carriers going up
Yeah,
and
there was
down
always
Yankee
2 on
Stadium.
duty, I believe. And so when we'd leave, another one would come and take our place, and we'd go to one of the ports.
Like which one? Tokyo or
We went to Tokyo, Japan, Hong Kong, Thailand, Taiwan,
What
Philippines, Singapore.
happens when you have 1,500 guys on leave?
Chaos.
Yeah.
Well, no, there's 3 8-hour shifts. So, and it'd be a Cinderella liberty. You have to be back at midnight. So if you had a duty that day, between 4 and midnight, you couldn't go on
Oh, well,
till
that's
the next day.
understandable.
Right.
That's understandable.
So there were shifts, and it
Okay.
worked out all right.
You saw Bob Hope on
Bob
the
Hope.
Ranger. Tell me the story. How did he get on board? Did he come by a boat?
Well, he
Did
claims he was flown in on an F-18, but I believe they all came in on transport planes.
Okay.
But he'd come in with the leather helmet on and say he just landed on deck.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we
So-
had Raquel Welch.
So how was that set up? So no planes flew off the carrier
Right,
then?
yeah, there was a downtime, and they'd have all the other ships in the area, destroyers, escorts, cruisers, whatever, they'd take them in and ferry them into our ship, and we probably had 15,000 on it that day.
Wow.
Hanging all over the forecastles and the
Yeah,
decks.
yeah,
and-
yeah. So did you see the show?
Yeah, it was
Oh.
excellent.
Yeah, I saw the show in the year before.
Uh-huh.
What day did you see it on? Do you remember?
December 21st, 1967.
It's funny how you remember that. I saw it on the 26th of 1966, but it wasn't on a ship. When you're on board ship, can you grow beards?
You can, after you get out, so many miles, 2 days, I think you can start growing beards, and I never could. And you could keep them the entire cruise, and then when you come back to that spot on the way back, you'd have to shave them off.
So when you went to port, let's say in the Philippines or Tokyo, you could wear a beard
Right.
going on leave,
Yep,
right?
yep.
So, but when you came back to the States, you had to be clean
Right,
shaven.
right.
Everybody.
Right.
Can you wear a mustache in the?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Did that have to be on your ID card?
I'm not sure. It had to be a certain length and width or whatever. It couldn't be a handlebar or.
Yeah.
But as far as, I guess if you already had a card and didn't have the mustache on it,
Yeah.
there was no way
Yeah.
of doing it.
Let me ask you, what about haircuts?
Haircuts always have to be military.
Who makes that decision?
Any superior person that sees you walk by and they don't think your haircut is right, they'll send
That's
you to the
right.
barber.
If they don't like the way you cut your
Right,
hair, I mean, they
right,
can tell you
right.
to see about. So you had barbers on board ship.
Yep.
How many? Do you remember?
There was 3 or 4. There was a ship store. There was a post office. There was what they call gee-dunks, places you can get quick drinks, hot dogs or
Do you
whatever.
have a bowling alley?
I didn't. No, I don't think we had a bowling.
Oh,
alley.
by the way, tell me about. I'm sorry, I just remembered this. When your planes are landing on board, some planes don't make it, and they have to take off again.
Right,
They
they
don't hook.
Right. They
on
don't
the
catch the
cable.
arresting wire.
All right.
So they have. If they don't, then they have to take off again and come back around.
Right. So there's TV on board. A different.
Right.
What do they call that?
Well, it was closed circuit TV.
Closed circuit TV.
Yeah.
So you could watch a plane landing
Yep.
and seeing if those wings are not going
Right,
to
right.
make it.
Exactly.
And if he misses how many cables on
I think there's he has 2 he can catch.
Okay. There's a hook on the plane.
Right.
He has to hook the
Tail
cable,
hook.
and that stops the plane, and then they take the plane and they move it
Right.
off till the next plane
Right,
comes
exactly,
on.
yeah.
Right? And if he misses that, he has to take off again.
Right.
Now, if he doesn't make it and he doesn't have power to take off, what happens?
Sometimes they have to. They ditch the plane in the ocean. if
So
they
what
run out of
happens in
gas.
that situation? Man overboard again?
Yep, same drill. Man overboard.
Yeah.
You know, the helicopters and the whole 9
Now,
yards.
do they make bets on who's going to go overboard?
Well, we on the closed circuit TVs, everybody on the deck would have a life vest would have B27 or A15. So there were some little lotteries about a buck a piece, and whoever won the lottery, if someone got blown off. But it's
So,
kinda we had 2 or 3 incidents that people got
Okay.
blown off.
Did the pilots survive, or what happens? Do they eject right away?
They eject, right?
They eject. So do you see the parachute open up? Or?
I guess if you were up on deck, you would, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see that.
Some of them, did they all 3 survive? Do you remember?
Yep, yes, they did.
Another thing is big on aircraft carriers is fires. Everybody's a fireman.
Right.
Did you have any fires on board ship?
We had some small fires. Some of the other ships, the Forrestal had a famous fire. I think
That's
they
right.
lost a couple hundred people, I
Yeah,
believe.
that's right.
And the Oriskany had a big fire, but we only had a couple of small ones that were put out.
So the
pretty quickly.
Oriskany and the
Forrestal.
Forrestal made the news in the States. That was a
Right.
big thing. I can remember that. And if you don't fight it correctly, you could sink
Right.
in the middle of the ocean. I
It
mean,
was spread to the weapons.
weapons, and it could explode,
Exactly.
and you have fuel, JP4 fuel,
Right.
which is high combustible, and it could explode, and then you're dealing with injuries and fires and so
Yep.
forth. So that's interesting. So you didn't have any major fires, but people can lose their lives on the ship
Quickly.
if you're especially in the middle of the ocean. The fires can go on. Oh, real quick before this ends, you were called up for the Pueblo Incident. Tell me what happened.
We were in Vietnam at the time. The Pueblo was taken in North Korea, and our
It
ship
was a spy ship.
allegedly was a spy ship.
Allegedly.
And so our ship went up, the Ranger went up, and we were about 7 miles off the coast in international waters, along with some Russian ships and some other cruisers and destroyers from the U.S. Navy, and we were out there for about 2 weeks. It was a pretty tense time.
Okay.
And then when we left, actually there were 2 carriers at the time up
Oh,
there.
wow.
We'd get relieved.
Battle stations,
Yep, general quarters.
24 hours?
Not 24 hours, but pretty much 2 or 3 drills a day.
All right. The Pueblo was a spy ship. It said allegedly it was in international waters. We know how that is. Allegedly means allegedly.
Right, yeah.
And it was captured by the North Vietnamese Navy. They took the ship in. They were prisoners for 11 months. It was a big to-do in the United States. This was in 1968. And the prisoners eventually were given back to the United States government. People got medals for that. There was 1 Marine got a Navy Cross, 2 people got Silver Stars, many Bronze Stars with V device, many Commendation medals with V device. They got the POW medal, Purple Heart, Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, Navy and Marine Corps Achievement medals with V devices. So there was a big to do. It wasn't. They didn't really. They investigated it, but it wasn't a big deal where Congress made a big to do about it. I think they had a ship before then off the coast of Israel, another spy ship that was called the Liberty. You remember that, right?
Yeah.
And that was captured 8 months before the Pueblo. But the big deal is that allegedly there was no air cover for the Pueblo, and you guys went up there. And then you went back to Yankee Station
Right.
after that, back to Vietnam.
Right.
So you guys were working 24 hours a
Yep.
day. I mean, it was really
Tense at that time.
tense at the time. And everybody on board that ship got the Vietnamese campaign medal,
Right.
Vietnam campaign medal. So I just want to thank you for coming on board.
Pleasure, enjoyed
on the
it.
show. Yeah, thank you. Because I know other veterans watch this show, and hopefully they'll come on board and have the cookies to come on the show
Okay.
and talk about their experience. It's not for them; it's for their families and for their grandchildren,
Right.
basically. And I think that's very important that you came on. and talked about experiences. And everybody has an experience. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
great. I mean, you watch a show here in town,
Right.
and I know other veterans watch it too, because we try to make it interesting. Thanks.
All right, thanks for everything
Thanks
you do
for
the
coming. Yeah,
veterans.
thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah.